Tonight on Reporting Scotland, we reveal claims of tax avoidance by a private jet firm during the period that it was majority owned by Celtic's largest individual shareholder, Dermot Desmond.
It looks like the Isle of Man ExecuJet company was a tax avoidance vehicle which allowed ExecuJet to avoid more than $1 million in tax over 3 years.
That is absolutely wrong.
Also on the programme, Kezia Dugdale says there should be women MSPs on the governing body of the Scottish Parliament if it's serious about tackling sexual harassment. A policeman is stabbed at Edinburgh College. A man has been arrested. The Scotland interim manager, Malky Mackay, wants his new call-ups to make an immediate impression against the Dutch this week.
And the BAFTA Scotland Award goes to Laura Fraser for The Missing.
And all the winners at the Scottish BAFTAs amidst calls for fairer representation for women in the industry. Good evening. Millions of leaked documents, known as the Paradise Papers, have revealed the business and tax dealings of prominent individuals and companies operating in Scotland. Tonight, we can reveal claims of tax avoidance by a private jet firm during the period it was majority owned by Celtic's largest individual shareholder, Dermot Desmond. There are no suggestions that Mr. Desmond or the company acted illegally. The data was obtained by the German newspaper Süddeutsche Zeitung and passed to the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists. Working alongside the BBC's Panorama programme, BBC Scotland's investigations team is the only Scottish partner working on the leak. Here's our investigations correspondent, Mark Daly.
The Paradise Papers. More than 13 million documents from the offshore law firm Appleby leaked. It's information the public was never meant to see.
There are thousands of documents relating to Scots businesses and people. Some of them you'll have heard of and some you won't. But they've all got one thing in common: avoiding tax.
Well, I think every person who pays taxes should care about what we're seeing here. Basically, you and I pay taxes because we want roads and schools for our kids. If these companies are not paying their fair share of taxes, then it just means that you and I are paying more. It's as simple as that.
Dermot Desmond, billionaire majority shareholder of Scotland's biggest football team, Celtic. The data reveals a former company of his, aviation firm ExecuJet, was a client of Appleby's, and that Appleby may have helped it avoid Swiss taxes. Our data shows that in 2012, whilst owned and controlled by Mr. Desmond, ExecuJet got in touch with Appleby. According to this Appleby memo, ExecuJet, with offices all over the world, has taken tax advice, and it seems having its Swiss HQ as its main office under its insurance policy has a negative tax consequence, as they would need to pay a 5% levy under Swiss law. So they decide to switch their office to a more tax-friendly jurisdiction. That's where the Isle of Man and Appleby comes in. There's no aviation insurance tax on the Isle of Man. And there's another benefit. This is a low-risk structure that has been set up to receive monies due to ExecuJet under the insurance policies of the group aircraft. By having the monies paid into the Isle of Man entity, ExecuJet are not required to pay Swiss tax on the income of around 22%. So in using this deft, although legal, switch, it seems Mr. Desmond's company saved up to $1.3 million in taxes over 3 years. But the data suggests it was ExecuJet's head office in Switzerland really calling the shots, and that could lead to the Swiss authorities challenging the structure.
My understanding, having read the legislation, is that if individuals in Switzerland are making all the decisions as regards what the Isle of Man company does, then from a Swiss point of view, the Isle of Man company may be resident in Switzerland for tax purposes. And if it's resident in Switzerland, then despite the structure that has been put in place, stamp duty is due on the insurance premium paid, and Swiss corporation tax is due on the money received back from the insurance broker.
We tried to contact Mr. Desmond, but he did not respond. So we caught up with him at somewhere we knew he would be.
But were you aware that whilst the company was under your control, that ExecuJet
was using a shell company in the Isle of Man as a tax avoidance vehicle?
We never use any company as tax avoidance vehicle.
What was the Isle of Man executive company for then, if not for avoiding tax?
Well, then you'll have to educate yourself.
So, so ExecuJet asked Appleby to set up effectively a shell company in the Isle of Man so that the company would not be liable for Swiss aviation tax. Is that not the case, Mr. Desmond?
You're incorrect.
Could you put me right then?
I'm not duty bound to educate you in how we run our affairs.
So we have written several letters to you to try and get clarity on what the situation is, and what it looks like the Isle of Man ExecuJet company was a tax avoidance vehicle which allowed ExecuJet to avoid more than $1 million in tax over 3 years.
That is absolutely wrong.
But maybe you could tell us, what was the Isle of Man company for if not to avoid tax, Mr. Desmond?
That is our own business. So every company in the Isle of Man is not for avoidance of tax.
One final question. Did ExecuJet, Isle of Man, help ExecuJet, EAG avoid tax?
Absolutely not.
Okay, Mr. Desmond, thanks very much for your time.
The next day, Mr. Desmond wrote to me with a question. Are you a Rangers supporter? He added that during my period of majority ownership, ExecuJet was tax and regulatory compliant in all the various jurisdictions it operated in, nor was it under any investigation. There are good operational reasons for having a presence in the Isle of Man, and many international companies do so. The Paradise Papers have laid bare some of the offshore secrets of the wealthy, with much more to come in the following days.
And Mark Daly is with me now. Mark, what else have we learned today?
Well, the revelations keep on coming, Sally. Politicians, TV stars, and now one of the best paid sportsmen in the world find themselves at the centre of this incredible story. Tonight we heard about the Formula One ace Lewis Hamilton having avoided paying over £3 million in VAT on his luxury jet. And just a few minutes ago, it was the stars of one of the most popular shows on the BBC, Mrs Brown's Boys, who were revealed to be part of this leak. Now, 3 of the cast members, we see on the screen there, put more than £2 million from their work on the show into an offshore scheme in Mauritius. Patrick Houlihan, Martin and Fiona Delaney had their fees paid in to these companies, and the money was then transferred back to them as loans. Now, people might remember that in 2012, Jimmy Carr, the comedian, he was at the centre of a similar scheme. Well, it was the same accountant involved, a man called Roy Linus, who advised these actors too. And of course, this is a story much closer to home for us because Mrs Brown's Boys is filmed in this very building.
Well, talking of much closer to home, Mark, what can we expect in terms of revelations from you tomorrow?
Well, with a leak of this size, you would expect there to be many Scottish connections, and that has been the case. Now, BBC Scotland's investigations team is the only Scottish media partner who was invited into the ICI project, and for the last 5 or 6 months we've been working through this data. And one of the biggest names that we've seen so far is Dermot Desmond, that we heard about tonight. But there are other stories too, including about the tax arrangements of a major company in an iconic building in Glasgow, which involves some big sums of money, more of which we can bring you tomorrow night in a special BBC Scotland documentary.
Mark, thank you very much indeed. And you can see Scotland's Paradise Papers tomorrow night at 7 o'clock on BBC One Scotland. A senior MSP has called on Holyrood's governing body to quit in the aftermath of the controversy about sexual harassment. Kezia Dugdale, the former Labour leader, says it's completely unacceptable that the group deciding the rules in Parliament should be all male. And tonight, the idea of reform was backed by the Scottish Government. Ms Dugdale's call came as Holyrood launched a hotline to allow anonymous complaints. More on this from our political editor, Brian Taylor.
Meet Holyrood's corporate body. Nominated by parties, they help the presiding officer run Parliament. Notice anything? Yep, they're all male.
That's simply unsustainable now. So today I'm calling on the corporate body to all resign, and I'm calling on the Parliament to put in place a mechanism whereby we can gender balance that corporate body, the body charged with making decisions about Parliament, including its sexual harassment policy.
Women say the Holyrood hotline's welcome, but big questions remain.
Where do victims go for support? Are they being signposted to their local rape crisis centre? And what training has somebody who is working on the helpline had? Where's the accountability for whether the helpline is doing what it has been asked to do?
Glasgow MSP Polly McNeill also welcomed the hotline and other initiatives, but she said complaints must be independently scrutinised.
To set an example, I think the Parliament and the political parties, more importantly, have to set up structures where there is a complaint, then the woman, the person coming forward knows that it's going to be dealt with independently by people who have an understanding of the nature of sexual harassment.
Otherwise?
Otherwise it becomes completely meaningless and women will not come forward.
No one says sexual harassment is endemic at Holyrood. The worry, though, is that complaints may still remain hidden. Over the weekend, Mark MacDonald resigned as a Scottish Government minister, conceding that his behaviour in the past had perhaps fallen short. He remains an MSP, and that drew contrasting views in his Aberdeen constituency.
He has helped us in the past, and I would prefer for the full facts to come out before we rush to judge him.
Leaving as a minister, you would think leave his local MSP as well. I mean, you can't accept you've done something wrong, leave one job but think you can carry on with the other one.
But MSPs are picked by their voters. If they could be ousted too easily, that could prompt malicious complaints from political rivals or vested interests. Also, at the weekend, Labour's Monica Lennon said she had been sexually assaulted in the past by a party colleague before she became an MSP. More broadly, it's about political culture. At the CBI conference in London today, the Prime Minister said Westminster needed to change.
For too long, the powerful have been able to abuse their power, and their victims have not felt able to speak out.
Again, few feel the problem is as bad at Holyrood, but nobody says Scottish politics is immune. Brian Taylor, reporting Scotland.
And in London this evening, Theresa May has just finished meeting with other party leaders to discuss setting up an independent grievance procedure for Westminster. Well, David Porter joins us now. David, what's the latest there?
Sadly, that meeting in the Prime Minister's office in the House of Commons behind me has just broken up within the last few minutes. And what they were trying to do was to form a cohesion strategy for moving forward, or to put it more bluntly, to strike a deal to try and clean up this latest sleaze which has affected Westminster. All sides agree that something has to be done, and something has to be done quickly. Before the meeting got underway, I spoke to one of those who was attending, the SNP Westminster leader, Ian Blackford, and I asked him that if a new body is set up, how important is it that that body is out with the control of the political parties?
Political parties can't police themselves when it comes to these issues. So yes, we need to make sure that we create a mechanism for that to happen. What will happen at the meeting today is we will set up a working group. We all participate in that. We've got to find a way of getting this right.
So agreement that there needs to be some kind of body to look at that, but there are also disagreements as well as to how that body ought to operate. For instance, should it have the power to sack MPs? Can it look at things retrospectively? So there is some measure of agreement, but there are also disagreements as well. Some people say it is time that MPs undergo mandatory training on staffing issues. There is broad agreement that something needs to be done and something needs to be done quickly, but that doesn't mean it is going to be easy to strike a deal on this.
Thank you, David. A man has appeared in court charged with murdering a 20-year-old woman in Aberdeen. Chloe Mezek was found dead in a flat in Rosemount Viaduct on Friday morning. 32-year-old Mark Bruce appeared at Aberdeen Sheriff Court this afternoon in connection with her death and was remanded in custody. A man has been charged after a police officer was stabbed in the back in Edinburgh. The officer was responding to a call at Edinburgh College in the Granton area. Lisa Summers is there for us this evening. Lisa, what can you tell us?
Sally, we know that the police were called out about 9:10 this morning. They were responding to reports that a man was threatening to harm himself and also others. Now, while they were dealing with that incident, a male police officer in his 20s was stabbed in the back. He was taken to hospital as a precautionary member, and it's understood that he is recovering. But in the meantime, the police have arrested and charged a 19-year-old man in connection with the incident. Now, the college say that they're helping the police with their investigation. There will be an increased police presence here for the next couple of days, but they said it didn't mean any disruption to classes. But in the interim, the Scottish Police Federation say that they have concerns about the way that staff are deployed to such incidents.
I commend the bravery of all the officers that were there today, and obviously we're thinking about our officer who was injured. But it once again brings up the debate that we've been having quite a lot this year around we have personal protective equipment, but society's changing, and is it time to look at what we have, and is it suitable for what we're now facing on the streets to keep the public safe and to keep ourselves safe? And also that then ties in with, are the protocols that we currently follow, are they fit for purpose in terms of who we dispatch to such incidents?
Now, separately, in another incident, a female police officer was seriously injured last night, not far away from here in Muirhouse. She was responding to a call out about fireworks. A spate were reported across the capital last night. Now, the female officer's condition is described as serious but not life-threatening, and the police are appealing for witnesses.
Lisa, thank you very much. You're watching BBC Reporting Scotland. It's 7:15. A reminder of tonight's top story. We reveal claims of tax avoidance by a private jet firm during the period it was owned by Celtic's largest individual shareholder, Dermot Desmond. And still to come, an Outstanding Achievement Award for Armando Iannucci at the Scottish BAFTAs, presented by his old pal, Peter Capaldi. New technology is being tested in the Highlands that allows paramedics to send video and ultrasound images of their patients to hospital-based specialists. It's hoped the initiative, which is funded in part by the European Space Agency, will lead to better care of patients undergoing long journeys to hospital, while also giving staff at the A&E department at Rigmore advance notice about what to expect when they arrive. Andrew Thompson reports.
Ultrasound scans are normally associated with specialist hospital wards, but that's changing. Now these devices, along with video equipment, have been fitted in the back of ambulances in the Highlands. Newly installed advanced satellite technology then rapidly sends the images back to A&E.
Since we do cover a very remote and rural area, it's bringing the hospital and the equipment they have in the hospital to the roadside for the patient. So patients won't have to have their treatment waiting in the hospital, they can have it pre-hospitally. So I think it's going to greatly benefit folk.
40 paramedics have undergone the training in how to use the equipment, and from today they've been taking to the roads in a year-long trial. 5 ambulances like this one have been kitted out with this new technology. And of course the images inside, when they're sent back to the hospital, it's hoped that expert advice will be able to really improve patient care. Back at the hospital, the images can be quickly and thoroughly analysed.
The quality of the image is very nice. That's exactly what we'd expect to see on the ultrasound machine itself.
Experts believe this could help in a range of situations, such as identifying the nature of internal injuries patients suffer in road accidents, and say testing out the technology in the Highlands is ideal.
Journey times that we see for our patients, they're so prolonged and the needs get greater the further away you are. So if you're looking to test a pre-hospital technology, you want to go out and test it somewhere where it's really needed, somewhere where the journey times are big and the distance to care is big. So the Highlands is a natural place for that.
Andrew Thompson, Reporting Scotland, Inverness.
Football now, and Scotland's interim manager Malky Mackay won't be drawn on whether he wants the top job on a permanent basis. But he is clear on one thing. He wants the new men he's called into the international squad to make a real impression this week as he prepares a side to face Holland in a friendly on Thursday. Cardine Idsan has more.
A new manager, albeit for just one game. New players, even a new Scotland strip. It feels like the start of an era. They say if the shirt fits, wear it. But does the man succeeding Strachan want the job permanently?
If a Scottish manager is asked to be the manager of their country, there'd be very few that would say no to that, but I've not.
What he has done is introduce some fresh faces for the visit of Holland on Thursday. Some, like Christie, Cummings and Hanlon, are complete first-timers. Others have been in and around Scotland squads but never actually won a coveted cap. Now is the chance for some of them to change all that, with the man who picked them issuing a clear challenge.
They want to come and play for Scotland, and they want to show that there's that passion to actually go and get 50 caps for the country, and that's the challenge that I give them.
It'd be a dream come true, every day, especially every young boy, every young Scottish boy dreams of playing for their country, and especially like my family as well. They were big Scotland fans when I was younger as well. We used to watch all the games, and I think it'd be a great moment for them as well to see that. Obviously if I'm selected to play, then my parents and that will be there. They'll be in the stand, so it'll be a nice moment.
Be massive. I mean, I would have family there watching, and like you say, it would be my first cap, which would be a massive honour for myself and a massive point in my career that I can look back on. So one that I'm looking forward to, and hopefully I can play some part.
He says he's only focusing on one thing: how to beat Dick Advocat's men at Pittodrie. If he does, his employers at the SFA may have to add his name to the Scotland manager shortlist, if it isn't there already. Kerry Nedsan reporting Scotland, Glasgow.
Could another global sports event be heading to Scotland? Orkney has submitted a bid to host the International Island Games in 2023. If successful, thousands of athletes from island communities across the globe will be there, as well, of course, as many from Shetland and the Western Isles. From Kirkwall, David Delday reports.
The opening of the 2017 Games in the Swedish island of Gotland. Scottish athletes prepare to do battle against competitors from all over the world. In 6 years' time, this event could be coming to Orkney.
Orkney has fantastic sporting facilities. I think there's a real passion for sport in these islands. There are, of course, challenges, as there are with every island games. Perhaps accommodation is seen as the primary challenge for us, but I think in the bid document we've been able to put together, we've been able to address that, and hopefully the International Island Games Association will agree.
Accommodation is one issue, the other is funding. Some will come from sponsorship, but over £1 million has been pledged by Orkney Islands Council. Opinion on the streets of Kirkwall is divided.
Approach we can open-minded where you can. There'll be a cost as well, but if it's no costly, no you can.
I think it costs us too much money, which we haven't got.
I used to be a swimmer myself, so I think it encourages people to get into sport.
Because it's a waste of money for me.
Orkney is the only area in the running, and the deadline has now passed, but it still has to prove that it can put it on. International delegates have been carrying out an inspection of facilities.
As it stands at the moment, Orkney is the preferred bidder, so it will be, I guess, dependent on what we feel about our visit this weekend, and certainly we have to discuss that with the rest of the executive committee. And then ultimately it's up to all 24 member islands to make a decision.
That decision will be made next July, just under 5 years until something like this could be kicking off. David Daly, reporting Scotland, Orkney.
T2 Trainspotting was the big winner at the Scottish BAFTAs last night. The film picked up 3 awards. The sequel to the 1996 original won Best Feature Film, Best Director and Best Actor for Ewan Bremner. There were also awards for Laura Fraser and Deirdre Mullins, who called on the industry to offer fairer representation of women. Our arts correspondent Polly McLean reports.
The annual Scottish BAFTAs, and a chance for some star sporting. Inside, it was Trainspotting which swept the boards, 3 awards for the sequel T2. And in the absence of its stars, the team behind the cameras got their moment in the spotlight.
I'd like to thank all the same people and Irvine Welsh.
Actress Laura Fraser was there to pick up her award for her role in The Missing, one of a number of strong female characters on television.
I think the more women see women playing more interesting characters and in different kinds of roles, the more they think they're able to do these things in life. There's 2 men for every woman on our screens, and it's not representative of life. So the more brilliant parts, the more interesting parts for women, the better.
That campaign, which is pushing for equal representation of women in film and television, was visible across the ceremony last night, with many of the nominees and winners sporting 50-50 badges.
We're hoping that to encourage funding bodies, commissioners, writers, producers to pick stories that are women-centred a little bit more often, just a little bit more often, so that we even it up and have lots of stories about all sorts of people.
There was an Outstanding Achievement Award for Armando Iannucci, creator of so much TV and radio comedy. It was presented by Peter Capaldi, who played foul-mouthed spin doctor Malcolm Tucker and now plays Doctor Who. The two revealed they'll work together on a project in the new year. Polly McLean reporting Scotland, Glasgow.
Time for the forecast. Over to Christopher for the weather outlook.
Sally, thank you. Hello there, good evening to you. Well, a real cold night last night. These were some of the temperatures we got down to, but this coming night, much milder. You can see by comparison there, a good 10 degrees of difference in places. The reason why is because it's going to be cloudy, quite breezy and also quite wet. Now here's the charts and there's the rain. It's a weather front and it's going to work its way across the country as we go through the next few hours. So cloudy with outbreaks of rain edging eastwards, falling as snow on the mountains down to around 500 metres and quite windy, especially through the North Channel, the Ayrshire coast and up towards Shetland where we could have some gales. But you can see there, nothing quite as cold as last night. So you won't need the scraper for the windscreen tomorrow morning, but you might need a brolly. It's going to be cloudy and wet to start the day, but it improves. You can see there by late morning, lunchtime, some sunshine edging in and chasing that cloud and rain away. So many of us having a much better afternoon compared with the morning. Perhaps though parts of the eastern borders, East Lothian up towards the northeast coast, staying rather cloudy with that rain only just about leaving by this point. Elsewhere though, bright with some sunshine, a few showers, and it will be cooler than today, but probably feel better because you'll see some sunshine. And still quite cloudy at this point through parts of Orkney and Shetland, but the rain should have cleared. Now the rest of the afternoon into the evening and overnight, that rain off it goes to leave most places dry, still a scattering of showers, and it will be clear and cold. So a cold one tomorrow night. Wednesday, midweek, high pressure not too far away. This little nose of it giving us a reasonable day, at least for many central, southern and eastern parts, but a tangle of fronts bringing rain for the west and northwest. So here's Wednesday, here's how it looks. Largely dry, fine and bright for central, southern and eastern Scotland. Cloudy and wet in the west and northwest and increasingly breezy. And through the day, the cloud and rain will slowly edge its way eastwards. And then for Thursday, again, that high pressure not too far away. Wednesday's rain clears through, so Thursday itself, largely dry, fairly cloudy, but some brightness at times too. That's the forecast for now.
Chris, thank you. Now, a reminder of tonight's main news. Millions of leaked documents, known as the Paradise Papers, have revealed the business and tax dealings of prominent individuals and companies. BBC Scotland can reveal claims of tax avoidance by a private jet firm during the period it was majority owned by Celtic's largest individual shareholder, Dermot Desmond. There are no suggestions that Mr Desmond or the company acted illegally. And that's all from Reporting Scotland for now. There's an update at 8 with Laura McKeever and the late bulletin just after the 10 o'clock news. From everyone here, have a very good evening.